In the last lesson, we talked about using the Rapid Program Editor instead of the Teach Pendant to write your code. Today, we're going to add into that how to use ifs and whiles. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is the processes or the subroutines. All right. Um, In the last video, we talked about how to use the Rapid Program Editor in Robot Studio to write your code instead of using the Teach Pendant. Today, we're going to be talking about if and while loops. Now, if we look at the code that I have written so far, which you guys will be able to download for your assignment today, we have two different work objects. We have the brown box 1, we have brown box 2, and those are different. And if we actually look at the robot, you can see that we do have two different work objects here. So brown box 1, brown box 2. All right. We have tool data, so that way we can use the end effector that we have, which is good. We have four different robot targets or locations called W01, 1121, 31, which reference the man, I can't talk today, which reference the four corners of this green box, so there, there, and there, when you are referencing the different work objects, so that is important. We have a work object home, which is a point kind of above the green box, and then we have an actual home location. All right, so all of those are very important information. So the little code that we're going to write today is depending on which button you press on the Teach Pendant, so 3 or 4, it will use one of either work object A or work object B, basically. All right, we're going to try and treat this like we're loading a robot or something. So depending on which one is ready to be loaded next, it will do something at that one next. So that's kind of a little quick demo we're going to be doing today. So first thing we need to do is write some code just to get it to work with 1. All right. So we're going to start with a move J, so that way we can move joint-wise. We're going to stick with work object 0, and we're going to go to home. All right, so that will bring the robot up into that location, basically. All right. All right, so I now wrote the rest of the code off camera just to save us some time. So as you can see, we have our MoveJ home with my tool. That was key. Make sure that's your actual tool, not tool 0, otherwise that may cause problems. Work object 0, again, I don't want that to be based on either of these. I want that to be based on 0, 0. All right. Then we have brown box 2, and then make sure you continue brown box 2. I didn't think you need to continue once you clarified work object once. It turns out that you do, so that's going to be a very important point. So if we go ahead, send our program pointer to main, which we can do via rapid test and debug program pointer pp to main in all tasks. We can then go ahead and press the start button and see what happens. So we're going to our home location. Now we're going to go to home location for that work object, which again I picked a random point in space. Then we're going to go to W01, linear, and you can really see those corners now, how they're rounding that so much. All right, and that's that Z50, and we're good. All right, now if we go ahead and change these Z50s to Z, let's go with like a Z1. Well, actually that one should stay. Let's go ahead and change these all to Z1. Make that one Z50 again. And we can apply that. And if we go ahead and hit start, you'll now see the difference on those corners. All right. So we're going down. You should see very precise corners now. All right, not little rounded like we saw before. Dink. And now. All right, to that last point, and then back up to home. All right. So now, we want to make it so that way if we press button 1, it runs this, and we press button 2, it runs something else. Now we're going to cheat here a little bit, so we're going to just go ahead and do a new process. And I always like the one with the end in it, whether you're doing a process or a main or whatever, I find it works better. That way it automatically fills everything like the defaults in for you, which is nice. So we're going to call this, I don't know, routine 1, make my life easy. We're going to put all of that into routine 1. Actually, you know what? Let's leave the initial home out of that. All right. And we need a parameter. We're going to give it is the work object. So we're going to go with WO. We're going to give it a work object data, and then we're going to call it sub work object data. There we go. All right. And now I'm going to put that into where every brown box is down here. So we can delete all this. And now if we call our routine, routine 1, and then we give it brown box 2, we should see basically no change in what we did. All right, so let's go ahead and do a pp to main. Go ahead and hit start. And with a little tweak to my code, we had to add the word pers, P-E-R-S to that, so it's persistent. All right, you should have read about that on that website that I posted in the last video. That fixes the problem that I had. So now if we go ahead and press the start button, you'll see that it does basically the exact same thing. And you're going, whoop-dee, we did the exact same thing. We added more code to make it do the same thing. Yes, however, we can now add another routine call. Yeah, okay, you're running. You don't want me to edit it while you're running. We can now add another routine call here. Routine 1. We can call it brownbox1 this time. Download that, apply that, do a program pointer to main, hit start, and now you'll see that it's going to do the same thing as before first, but now we're going to, after we do the first one, we're going to come over and do the second one, which will be the nice part. Then we just have to worry about getting it so it only it picks which ones we run depending on which button on the teach pendant we actually click. So now you can see we're going to work object home for the second brown box setup. And now we're going to go down to the points and we're going to do the exact same thing over there. Boom. And bada bing. Alright, and now we're going to go home and repeat. Now, to add an if statement. Alright, so it's called, we're going to type in if, and we're going to do an if, else if. And we're going to say, I have to look up what I called these again. Program data, no. Control panel, IO. So we have work object 1, so if we call it WO, object 1 and 2, that gets really questionable. Anyway, this is a persistent work object. This one is a signal, so should name those better, but my bad. And we're going to say if that equals 1, then we're going to call brownbox1. And then we're going to say if work object 2 equals 1, then we'll call brownbox2. Alright, let's just clean up our code a little bit to make it look a little bit nicer. We're not going to put anything in the else for now. You could put something in the, actually we will. We'll do a wait time. And we'll give it a 0.1 second, semicolon. So now if we go ahead and apply this, we can go ahead and hit start, and it should go home, and it's just going to sit there and sit there and sit there and sit there until I press a button. As you can see, I pressed 3, so now we're going to come over here and do that setup. And again, watch what the arrow in the robot is doing. So right now we're running this code over here. And now we're back up here. And we're going to be bouncing back and around, back and around. And now if I press 4, you can see we're going to go into this other object. All right. So if statements are very simple. So if you just want to do a little loading routine with a robot or with a CNC machines, picking the blocks up, you could, come over, grab a block, wait, and then say, okay, I need to go to this, object 1 or object 2 with this. So that makes our lives very, very simple. All right, we can go ahead and stop that. Now we're going to add one more step to this, and that it will be a while loop. So we'll say, oh, we actually want that home to be inside the while loop. So we'll say while, and then we're going to use the end while because I like to do that. I think it keeps everything a little bit cleaner. All right. always like to try to keep my code clean by tabbing things over properly. Alright, so we're going to say while, we have that, and then our while statement will be loop num, and we're going to say is less than 10. Now, we're only going to increase the loop number each time we do something. We only have 10 blocks over there, so if we were loading, 10 would be what we would want. Notice we are starting at 0. Alright, and you know what, for my purposes of right now, we're going to make this 2. No, we'll make it 3. Alright, so we've got 3, and then in here we're going to add to loop num. So you do loop num colon equals loop num plus 1 semicolon. And we want to do that only each time we actually run the routine. So if we go ahead again and run this, right now loop num is 3. Let's do a program pointer to main again. Go ahead and hit start. I press a button on the teach pendant. There we go. You see it's going over there. Now it is kind of hard to know what the value of loop num is right now. So if we go to program data, and make sure you go to your number data types, notice it just says 0. You have to refresh this. This does not auto refresh. And really until it goes back home, or it's in the process of going back home, loop num won't change. So notice we're still at 1, we're still at 1, we're still at 1. I press 4 this time, and we're still at 1, we're still at 1. So it doesn't actually add that number until after the whole routine has been run. Maybe you want to set that number to run before the routine runs. Your choice. I really don't care overall. But anyway, so you can see we're doing it again. Still at 1 there because again we haven't exited our routine. We're on back way home. Now we're up to 2. So alright, we're at 3 now. And we're still running. Now it will not exit the while loop, so even if we already set this to 3, it would still continue the code. Remember, this is sequential, so it's saying while loop is less than 3. Well, we're at 2. Move home. Okay, we're there. Okay, run this command. Loop num is still 2. It comes all the way down, run, it says 3. It doesn't come back, it doesn't exit until it comes back and checks this again. Alright, now if we go ahead and bring our teach pendant back in again and we refresh, you can see we are at 3. So even if I press buttons, that shouldn't have worked. Well, we'll let it run and see what happens once we get to 4. For those out there who see my mistake, I never actually deleted. Let me go ahead and refresh this once. Notice we didn't actually count up that time. Alright, so we're still at 3. We didn't actually count up. And the reason we didn't count up is because I put that loop num plus up here in this routine. I didn't put it down here in these, which I meant to delete because I copied and pasted. So if I go ahead and delete all of that, because we don't need it, because we duplicated it up here, we can go ahead and apply. Well, again, off camera, I've started running this again just to save us some time. You can see we are at a value of 2 right now. We are running the program the last time for my loop of 3. And then once we get there, if I go ahead and click refresh, you notice we stopped instantaneously. Alright, we didn't even go home because move home was the first command, not the last. So once we hit 3, this hit 3, it ran the code, said loop, nope, we're done, and it ended. So maybe we should have put a move home right there at the end as well, so that way, outside of that while loop, so even if it never entered the while loop, it would still go to the home position. So there you can see how you can do a little while loop. We have our if statements, so we can make sure we're going to the right objects. You could do that based on loop number, so you could say, well, if loop number equals 3, add 5. If loop number equals 4, minus 12, you know, just like we did with the dobots. So there will be an assignment using while loops and if statements in class. Have a good one.